So we are recording, and I want to just remind everyone to make sure that you download these study guides that you can get either on the Start Here page right here, or you can go to quizzes right here and download them in this folder right here, right? You can go there, and I also sent them to you, so you should have them. They're really important. They're all important, but I spent some time on this one right here. Where did I put it? Let me see. Did I put it in here? I don't know if I did or not. Nope. Actually, I don't really remember where I put it. Put it somewhere. Let's see. Maybe I put it in course documents. Trying to find the one that says how to study for your exam, but since I can't find it, that's fine. I've got it somewhere. I'll just, if you just click right here, right? I've got it saved somewhere. So take some time to look at this carefully, because what I've done is I've actually really gone in depth in 3 of the questions, and you've got 20 questions that are AP exam questions since quiz 4. So you've got plenty of these questions, and if you go through and actually understand not only why the right answer is correct, why the correct answer is correct, but why they put these wrong answers in here, and what the rationale is for trying to distract you with these wrong answers and why they're wrong. That's going to give you the kind of understanding you need to answer any question you're going to get on the final exam or on the AP exam. However, if you just go through your quizzes and memorize the answers to those specific questions, that's not going to necessarily help you, because you're going to need to understand why it's correct and why all the wrong answers are not correct. So please take some time to look at this, what I've done, carefully. Obviously, if you have any questions, you can bring them up in our sessions, or you can email me. Especially if you're going through, this is the thing, this is important. If you're studying, which you should be doing now, you should be going through and reviewing your quizzes since quiz 4, 5, 6, 7. I don't know if 8 is available yet, because I'm not sure everyone's taking it. But as soon as it is available to you, review the questions. And if you are studying a question and you don't understand why a wrong answer is wrong, like if you say to yourself, it seems like this question has 2 right answers, that's when you really want to, you want to either figure it out, or if you can't, ask me and we'll go over it. And because you need to really know why all the wrong answers are wrong. Okay? That's important. All right. So look at that, and then there's like 2 other really good study guides that have graphs and formulas, so that you have all your graphs and all your formulas in one spot, so you can study them and know them. Because I'll say this over and over and over again. The key to the key or the way to get a lot of these multiple choice questions correct is to be able to quickly sketch the graph and see what's going on graphically, and that will really help you get the right answer. Okay? So be able to draw those graphs from memory easily. Okay? All of them. That's really important. Okay. Quiz 9 is sort of a review quiz, because the chapter is really, there's not a lot on the AP exam from the chapter. There's a little bit, but not a lot. So the assignment and the quiz is mainly review, and it's good review. So we're going to go over some really good review stuff. So if we look at your study guide, which we have right here, the first thing I've got in here is I want you to understand the effect on a perfectly competitive market when the firms are earning, when all the firms in the market are earning an economic profit. What happens to the price in the short run? Well, you actually had an assignment problem that looked at this very thing, and I've got it right here. And so what we're really talking about is if the firms are earning a profit, if the price is up here and the average total cost is down here, that means that if this is where they're producing, or if, let's see, no, I'm sorry, if this is where they're producing, where marginal cost equals a price, then they're going to be making profit because that's over. That means that price right here is above average total cost. So what's going to happen is firms are going to come into the market. In this case right here, farmers are going to probably switch from growing some other crop, for example, wheat, to growing corn because there's profit in corn, which means that the supply in the market for corn is going to shift to the right. There's going to be more corn in the market because more farmers are going to grow corn. More firms are going to grow corn, right? Are going to come into the corn market, which drives the price down, right? That's going to drive the price in this case from a P star to PM, okay? And then as the price drives down, then the profit for the firms eventually goes to zero, right? And this is what we call long-term or long-run equilibrium. All the firms in the market are making zero economic profit because price equals marginal cost, price equals average total cost, okay? So the first question that you're going to have, if you have this graph in your head, or if you can draw it, you'll be able to, you won't have any problem, okay? Okay, this next one is just, I've given you a link, and that's, so I'm going to let you go there because this is just more of an informational question, and you just need to know what kind of policies are going to reduce income inequality in an economy. Okay, so that's that, and so you can just study that on your own, and you shouldn't have any problem with that. We want to be very, very, and I'm not going to go over all this because it's right here for you. It's right here, right? So you can study this. But once again, it's really important to be able to look at a firm in a perfectly competitive market. This is the firm. Actually, I've got that over here. Let me just go back over to my, let me just go right here. Actually, I don't have it. Okay. I'll stick to this. Anyway, go over this very carefully, and, and make sure you know how they're similar and how they're different. Now, if we just look at this, we can say that one way they're similar is that both firms' demand curve are also their average revenue curve, not their marginal. Now, right, that's the difference. The marginal revenue curve in Monopoly has a steeper slope. It's typically twice the slope of the demand in the average revenue. However, so that's how they're different, but they're similar, or they're alike in that in both a monopoly and in a perfect competitor, demand equals average revenue, right? Because demand is the whatever the price is the average revenue. Okay, so just go over this and just make sure you're very, very comfortable with knowing how these two firms are alike and how they are different. Okay. This one right here, what we're really talking about is when there's a public policy. For example, when we have a progressive income tax, that means that the higher incomes are taxed at a higher tax rate. So like in the U.S., I believe, and I'd have to check on it because it might have changed, but I believe that income over $300,000 a year is taxed at the highest rate, which is 37%. Now, what's really going on is people who are in high incomes are being taxed, and then that money, not all of it, but some of it is used to support people who make very, very low incomes. So we call that redistribution of income. Now that is to make society more equal, less, that's to reduce income inequality. But what happens when you tax higher income earners more, they tend to invest less. And when this type of policy reduces investment, that makes the economy less efficient. So what you gain, you're always going to have a trade-off. And this is why there's so much political debate, because whatever the government does to try to reduce income inequality, they're going to also reduce they're also going to reduce economic efficiency. So you can't, so you've got to sort of, there's a tension between those two goals, because you want you want to reduce income inequality, but you also want to not reduce efficiency. So, and that's hard. Okay. This is review. I just want you to review and make sure that you really understand the concept of opportunity cost, and I'll let you guys review that on your own. However, I do want to show you real quick, I've got it right here, just so we can review it, a production possibilities curve. This is a PPC, right? PPC, production possibilities curve. And the fact that it is bowed or concave means that we have as we move down, we're in this model, as we move down the curve, we're gaining in capital goods, but we're losing in consumer goods. And so if we go from the point right here to point A, you see we gain a lot. We gain a lot in capital goods and lose very little. So the opportunity cost in consumer goods is relatively small. But as we move down the curve and we gain more and more in capital goods, the opportunity cost in consumer goods is increasing. So the real fundamental concept here is when the curve is bowed, you're going to have increasing opportunity cost as you gain in one good over the other. Okay. If the curve was linear, just to put this, if the curve was linear, then you should know that opportunity cost is constant, right? Constant. No, it's not going to be increasing because the slope is constant, right? Okay. We want to be able to identify the unique characteristics of a natural monopoly. And I've got one right here for you. So let's just talk about that a little bit. And the most important thing, what happened? Oh my goodness. Oh no, I'm in the wrong ones. Sorry about that. Woo! Oh, by the way, the password for quiz 9 is quiz space 9. And I'm going to keep it in there so that everybody who's here is going to know how to get into quiz 9. And anybody who's not here is going to have to look at the video and see that the password for quiz 9 is quiz space 9. Okay? A capital Q, U-I-Z space 9. That's how you're going to get into. So if anybody sends me an email and says, I can't get into quiz 9 because there's a password and I don't know what it is, it means they didn't watch this, right? Okay. Let's see, where are we here? Okay, so the main, let me just get this guy. The main characteristic it's important to know about a natural monopoly is that as we increase production, average total cost is decreasing. Okay, as we go more and more and more, it continues to go down, and that's the unique characteristic of a natural monopoly. Now there's a lot of other characteristics that are a monopoly, but that's what sort of sets a natural monopoly, sort of sets it apart. And if you think about that, examples of a natural monopoly would be a cable company. And if you think about once the cable company has put in all their infrastructure, and if like we're moving to Long Island, and we're going to get Verizon, and they're just going to flip a switch. So to add us as a customer, the marginal cost of that is not much at all, and it doesn't really. And as they add customers, their average cost actually goes down because we're paying more than it's costing them. So that's what you want to know about a natural monopoly. And then we'll get to more of this as we go through. I think I've got some more in here about a monopoly. You need to know the unique characteristics of an I can't even say this, oligopolistic market, right? Oligopolistic market. And I've got a link here. So you can just go there and we're all about it. Now, oh yeah, this is the one. So we want to understand why a monopoly is allocatively and productively inefficient. Okay, what are we talking about? Well, you should know, this is review, but we're going to go over it. This is where a monopoly is allocatively efficient, or also we can say the socially optimal production, where marginal cost equals demand, or marginal cost equals let me see where if I can, not that, equals marginal benefit, right? Marginal benefit, or so let me make that smaller. So always remember, demand is also marginal benefit. So when marginal cost equals marginal benefit, that is where the firm would be allocatively efficient, or that is the socially optimum level of output and price. But look, the monopoly is going to maximize profits way up here. at a much higher price and a much lower quantity. They're going to maximize, if they're not regulated, they're going to produce where marginal cost equals marginal revenue, which is a much lower level of production than where marginal cost equals marginal benefit. So that's why an unregulated monopoly is not ever allocatively efficient. Now, in order to be productively efficient, they're going to want to produce where price equals average total cost. Productively efficient is where price equals average total cost. Now, once again, this monopoly is producing at a level lower than QA in here, way down here, and at a price higher than what would be productively efficient. So that's why we say a monopoly is neither allocatively efficient nor productively efficient. Okay, that's why, and that's just a review. This is not a review. This is probably something you may or may not have seen. You've probably seen it somewhere, but not in our course, I don't think. So this is a table showing the percentage, let's see, of income, right? Income, sorry, income. I've got it right here a little bit larger so we can see it. So what I want you to be able to see here is what's happening. What is changing here, right? What is changing? So if we look at this, the lowest 20% are the lowest 20% in the workers in the labor force in terms of their income, right? And before there was any taxes or transfers, they only got the lowest 20% only got a little bit over 1% of all the income received by everyone. So they got a very little, right? So that doesn't seem fair at all, right? That the lowest 20% would only get 1%. And the highest 20% got half. So that's what we would call an income distribution that's not very equal. That's not very, it's just not very equitable. Now, after taxes, and after the higher income paid more taxes and the lower income got things like child tax credits and, got actually, benefits, then we see that the biggest change here is that the highest got less, right? The highest 20% of the income earners got 7% less, and the lowest 20% got 6% more. So you see there was a transfer from here to here, right? Does that make sense? Okay, so that's just something that I wanted you to be able to look at. Now this one is probably the one that's the trickiest of all the ones that you're doing. And this is two graphs showing, let me get my thing right here. And this is where you really need to think, okay? This is a graph showing total revenue, right? Total revenue. And this graph and this curve right here, let me see if I said that right. No. Sorry. This is total cost. Yeah, I'm sorry, I said that wrong. This is total cost. It's constantly increasing, right? And marginal cost here goes up, and then it kind of slides down, and then it goes up. So this is, actually it's not. Sorry about that. I'm saying this wrong. This is total cost, and this curve right here, well, let me just back up. Start over. The blue is total revenue, okay? And the black is total cost, all right? So total cost is also going up. Now, why this is weird is because think about marginal revenue. Here and here. If total revenue is changing constantly, if the change is constant, right? What that means is that marginal revenue is what it is for a perfectly competitive firm. It's this right here. It's this because it's the marginal, the change in revenue is constant. But obviously, as a firm sells more, as they sell more, their total revenue is going to increase, but it's going to increase constantly. So when we see a total revenue curve that's linear and constantly increasing, we can know that the marginal revenue curve for that firm looks like that. Okay, that's the marginal revenue, right? Whoops, sorry about that. Right there. Okay, now that's a firm in a perfectly competitive market. Now, where are they going to make their maximum profit? Where the biggest difference between total cost and total revenue. So right about here is where they're going to make their most profit, because that's where, once again, total revenue is the how I say is the most more. it's more. It's higher. There's more of a difference right here between total revenue and total cost than anywhere else on here. So this is where their maximum profit is. Same is true here. Okay. Now, what's different over here is the total revenue curve is constantly changing. It's the increase in total revenue is getting smaller and smaller and smaller. So the marginal revenue for that total revenue curve looks something like that, right? Because as we produce more, the increase, the marginal, the difference is smaller. It goes from here to here to here to here. It gets flatter, and then and then here, about right there, it goes a negative, right? So the change is actually a negative. So the marginal revenue curve would be negative, where this starts going down somewhere right in there. So this kind of total revenue curve tells us this is either a monopoly or a monopolistic competitor, because the marginal revenue curve would be down sloping if the total revenue curve looked like a parabola. Okay, once again the maximum profit is going to be about 4, right? It's going to be about 4, because that's where the greatest difference is between total revenue right here and total cost right there. Okay, does everybody understand how to tell the difference between, if you see curves like these, how to tell if it's a monopoly over here or a perfect competitor over here? Good.
Is that the only way that you're able to tell if that's a monopoly, then, if the total revenue is like a parabola?
Well, if this is all you see, like if this is all they show you, like if this is the graph, like if they say is, which one of these is a perfect competitor and which one is the monopoly, well, you only have 2 curves to look at, right? And the total cost curves are similar, right? So that you can't tell. The only way you can tell is by looking at the total cost. And it's going to be constantly going up for a perfect competitor because the marginal revenue is constant, right? The change is constant, right? And here the change is getting smaller and smaller. So this would be a marginal revenue curve that looks like that. Okay?
Okay.
Does that make sense? And if you've had a calculus, you can say this curve right here is a derivative of this curve right there. Who else had a calculus? Anybody? Yeah. Okay. Well, when you have a calculus, that's what a derivative is, the change, right? Okay.
Yeah, that's yeah,
Yeah. Yeah.
that's the change. That's a calculus. I know.
Eric, you got it, right? You got it. Okay. Good for you. Calculus, man. Okay. Great. Um, okay. Where are we here? We're almost done. Now, this one is, okay. This is just, understanding that with a monopolistically competitive firm, a firm is a firm, right? I've got this bolded. I should have bolded firm, right? This is a firm, okay, in a market, right? So when we look at that, obviously that they're going to be in long run equilibrium when they're making zero economic profit, which is when price equals average total cost, right? And if they're making a profit and their demand curve is, let's say it's out here, like out here, right? And the price is up here, and they're making a profit, then firms will come into the market, which is going to mean that there's more choice, which means that every one of the firms' demand curves would gradually shift to the left until every firm was making zero, and that's when the market is in long run equilibrium. Okay. Now the next one's tricky. This is why. Let's see. Actually, this is not. Let's see. Oh yeah, this is the one. This is the one that I would probably get wrong. If I was going to get one wrong, this is the one I would like, well, what are they talking about, right? So the idea here is, or the question is, what is the goal of advertising for a monopolistically competitive firm? Why do they advertise, right? Okay. So the hint I have in here is that we have to remember that a monopolistically competitive firm has a downward sloping demand curve. Okay. Now, if you think about that, when is a firm able to increase their total revenue by increasing price? When are they? So, because if a firm is able to increase price and still increase revenue, they're going to. Now, think about price elasticity of demand. When it's inelastic, it means you can increase price, and the increase in price will be less than the decrease in quantity, right?
But if it's inelastic, wouldn't consumers then demand less?
Say again?
Because you just said that if price elasticity is inelastic, then you can increase your price. But wouldn't consumers demand less if it's inelastic?
They would, but they wouldn't demand as much less, right? Because when we think about inelastic, it means that they're not as responsive to a change in the price. So price would go up more than quantity would go down, right? Now, if you look at it graphically, it's, you can either think about the formula, which is the percentage change in quantity over the percentage change in the price. If the percentage change in price is more, then that's in the denominator, so it's less than 1, isn't it? So that's inelastic. So if we think about this right here, let's say this firm right here wants to make more revenue by raising the price. If their demand curve is very inelastic, right? They're able to raise price and lose very little in quantity, right? They can raise price way up here, but the people are demanding still, because it's so inelastic, almost as much, aren't they? Right? So you can see it graphically. If their demand curve is very, very elastic, like this, right? Like that, let me make it really, really elastic, right? Then if they raise price just a little bit, they don't sell anything, right? Their revenue goes to zero. See? So that's why that firms want to advertise to make their demand more inelastic. In other words, I saw a commercial for, I don't know, ketchup. And it made me want that ketchup so bad. And even though the price at the store is pretty high, I'm going to buy it anyway, right? Because the marketing of it made me want it. Does that make sense? Probably not the ketchup, probably something else. I don't know. Anyway, so that's something. It's and you know, you sort of have to think through it. You know, you have to think through what are they talking about. You know. Okay. What time is it? Okay, we're almost done. Let's see. Did that? Okay, you can do the. Okay, this is easy right here, isn't it? Obviously, when we go from a monopoly to a perfectly competitive market, if we just think about that, what's happening? We're actually going from producing, let me go back to here to the monopoly. We're actually, let me get my thing, sorry about that. Let me grab this guy. Oops, excuse me, where did he go? Here we go. If we're thinking about a monopoly, sorry about that. Okay, we're struggling here. Let me just get this guy. All right, so if we think about he went, come on, you. All right. It doesn't matter. I'm going to quit trying. Anyway, let me just go. If we think about where a monopoly is, okay, the deadweight loss is this big thing right here, isn't it? And I wish I had something here. Let me just grab. I'm trying to hurry. And when I try to hurry, I mess up. Whew, come on. Okay, just that's good enough. Okay, so if we're here, deadweight loss is all of that, isn't it? But if we're going to produce as a perfectly competitive firm, we're going to produce there, right? So deadweight loss goes to zero because when marginal cost equals marginal benefit, there's no deadweight loss. So obviously, when a monopoly firm starts to produce like a perfect competitor, deadweight loss gets a lot smaller. This is something you can do. You can review. It's just going to be, it's just going to be a typical question about a production possibilities curve. This one right here, I do want to, let's see, let me go back. This one, okay, let me just, I'm going to come back to this one, okay? So I'm going to highlight it. This one right here, this is just a matter of understanding how firms are going to either leave the market or come into the market until every firm is making zero economic profits. If firms are making losses, then firms will leave the market and price will go, and the demand curve will shift, until, everyone's making a zero. And then if firms are making profits, then other firms will come into the market until the demand curve shifts back to the left. So this is a review. This one right here is simply understanding that a firm is going to hire labor until the last worker's marginal revenue product is equal to the nominal wage. So this is something that you've had before, so it's review, and you shouldn't have any problem because it's review. And this, we just talked about this, didn't we? When the price elasticity of demand is elastic, then as you produce more, as the price goes up, your total revenue goes down. If it's inelastic, if you bring the price up, then you're going to get more revenue, right? The total revenue is going to increase. So now think about it. As you produce more, with a downward sloping demand curve, as you produce more, price is going to drop, isn't it? So as you produce more, if it's inelastic, you're going to well, let's just look at a graph. You know what? Let's just figure it out. This is what I do. So let's just go like this, because I wanted to draw a graph anyway. Okay, this is what I do. A really quick graph. Okay. Now, if it's inelastic, okay, and the firm produces more, right? They're gonna, or actually, as not produced yet. Well, as production goes up, price goes down. Okay. So if it's inelastic, what's going to be, and you go from, say, let me just get something here, and say you go from, say you go from here to here. Okay. Actually, let's just get this guy out of here. You go from here to here. Okay. What's changing more, price or quantity?
Price.
Price is going down more than quantity is going up, right? Right, guys? So if it's inelastic and you go from here to here and you produce more, then you're going to get less total revenue because your price is dropping more than your quantity is increasing. Okay. So if your total revenue is decreasing as you produce more, it's going to be inelastic, right? If it's elastic, if it's like this, right? As you come down, as you come down in the price a little bit, right? A little bit from here to here, it's a very small decrease in price. Quantity goes way up, right? So if it's elastic and you produce more, you're going to get more total revenue, aren't you? Right? Does that make sense? Okay. Now the other way you can think about it is this, right? If you think about, well, actually, let me think about how else you could think about that. Well, let's just I'll leave it at that, because you know, you think about the price effect versus, actually I've got it in here. I think I have it in here. I don't know let me look at this study guide. I thought I had that in. I guess I didn't. Something about the price effect. But if you wanted to, you could just go like this, just to show you guys for studying. If you just type that in, right? And you go, what time is it? Okay, we're almost done here. And you just come over here to Google, you know. Okay, so it says if an increase in price causes an increase in total revenue, then demand can said to be inelastic, since the increase in price does not have a large impact on the quantity demanded. So that's just the opposite. Okay, so let's just go back here. So we have a very inelastic, and we go up in the price, right? We're going up in price. But we're not dropping a lot in quantity. Let me just draw some more. See, if it's very inelastic. See, drawing the graphs and just thinking about it is really what I want to get you guys to do. If we're going from here, right, to here, okay? If it's inelastic, you're going to go up in price, so you're going to get more for each one you sell, but you're only dropping a little bit in quantity. So that means, so if you go up in price and total revenue goes up, that means it's inelastic. If it's very elastic, right, like this, and you go up in a price, you know, from there to there, you're going to only get a little bit of an increase in price, but you're going to lose a lot of quantity, you know, sold. So if it's elastic and you go up in price and you lose and your total revenue goes down, well, it would. Back up. You know it's going to be elastic if as you increase price, you lose total revenue, okay? So that's just, but I want you, instead of just memorizing all that, I want you to be able to like sketch a graph, you know, and to figure it out. Now, the one I want to do is show you is that, and I wanted to show you just by sketching it, okay? The one that and this is the last thing, and we'll be done, okay? So how can you shift the demand in the supply curve and change the price without changing the quantity? Okay, so let's say we're not going to change the quantity, all right, but we're going to change curves. So say we want to stick with this, say this is our quantity, and we don't want that to change at all, okay? And say that, and so this is just simply, and say the problem says, how do we not change quantity if we have a rightward shift in demand? Well, it's easy. Supply has to shift left, okay? And we have a higher price, but the same quantity, okay? And you can play out every scenario. What happens if demand shifts to the left? How do we keep the same quantity? Well, supply has to shift to the right. And we have a lower price, but the same quantity, okay? The other choice is what happens if supply, we have a negative supply shock and supply shifts to the left. How do we keep the same quantity? Well, demand's got to shift to the right. And we have a much higher price, but we have the same quantity, right? What happens if supply shifts to the right? Well, then demand, of course, obviously shifts to the left. And we have a lower price, but the same quantity. So whatever the question is, sketch the graph and figure it out. And you can do it, okay? And that's it. That's pretty much it. You know, make sure you really understand the relationship. You know, go over, just sketch it out and think about the relationship between price elasticity of demand and total revenue. That's going to be important. Okay. Does anybody have any questions before we end the night? No. So do I have everyone here? Do I have everyone? I've got Annie. I've got Eric, Sophie. I think she's still here. I hope. I don't know if she's still here or not. Yay, Sophie. Abigail. Abigail, say hi, Abigail. I didn't know you were here. Yeah. Okay, so all of you that are here, and there's Lolita and Julia Wright's here. Got her. Okay, good. So I have everybody, right? Make sure that you know, since you're in here, that the password for quiz 9 is quiz space 9. The capital QUIZ space 9, okay? That will get you into quiz 9. Okay, guys? Thank you.
Okay, thank you.
And I will see you. Actually, we're not going to meet again probably for a while because we're going to spring break is coming up. So look at the calendar. We're not, you know, assignment 10 is not due for a while. But take this time to study for the exam. Okay. to review your quiz questions, okay? And make sure you look at all those study guides that I sent you, okay?
Okay.
All right, guys. Bye.
Right.